Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with Astroscoop, Astrology Coaching, and it is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm looking over here, and it's certainly pitch black. So we are in the thick of fall. We have a lot of fun things to talk about tonight, and I will give it a few minutes to see if anyone comes in late. I'm thinking I may change this live stream time and go back to how I originally had it at 8 p.m. to try to get more people in, or maybe even try 9 p.m., which would be later. So I'm going to experiment in the next month or so with some different times. But Carolyn says, happy Friday. Happy Friday indeed. Yes, happy Fridays, correct. So 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today is October 25th, 2024. And the most important update is happy Scorpio. Happy birthday to all Scorpio people between now and right around November 21st or 22nd. So if you know anyone this week to the third week in November, you are dealing with a Scorpio person that's in your life. And tonight will be the last explanation of Libra, but we're going to talk about the Libra-Scorpio cusp. And then next week will be all Scorpio, which is wonderful. I love Scorpio. Scorpio is always interesting to delve into for a lot of reasons. Scorpio is like a buffet meal for astrologers, I think, in terms of the depth and character and interesting qualities of any of the signs. But tonight we will cover the Libra-Scorpio cusp, which runs from October 19th to today, which is the 25th or 26th. So at the end of the hour, we'll go over the transits. After we do the celebrities, we'll go over the transits. And if you're new to viewers that I've never had before from interesting countries, including Belarus, there's some very obscure countries that I'm getting views from, which is fascinating to me. So thank you very much. In addition to Russia, I mentioned, Russia right now is my #1 viewership country. But if you're new to my live streams, it's weekly here about astrology and life and the zodiac cycles and periods. And I interweave all that, life, psychology, personology, astrology, all together. Sort of a ebb and flow mix, if you will. And the live streams right now are weekly here on YouTube, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But like I said, I will probably be changing the times in the next month and experimenting with different times to see if I can get some more viewers in here and we can make it more interactive, which would be wonderful. And right now, it looks like we only have 1 or 2 people that were in. People come in and out, and usually by 5 or 10 after the hour, we usually have a couple of the 2 or 3 main people. But how's everyone feeling now with the fall energy? There's more darkness now in the evening. I know some people don't like that. I love it. I love when you're driving around 3 or 4 p.m. or even 5 p.m. here on the East Coast. You're driving and that sun is so blinding if you're driving towards the west. But then an hour or an hour and a half later, it's gone and then dark. So it's just amazing, this amazing switch that nature does. And that coincides with the zodiac periods, the astrological periods, which is very timely and relates to that. So like I said, we're going to give a couple more minutes. And don't forget to follow me on X or Twitter. And I'm also on Instagram. And you can email me with any questions if you want a chart or a report done or a reading. you can email me at astroscoop@zohomail.com. So that one is working again, astroscoop@zohomail.com. Karen's here. Karen says, greetings. Greetings to you, Karen. Hope all is well. Happy Friday. And so, yeah, you can email me there with any questions, comments, or to order a reading, a report. I do all sorts of reports and readings. And just ask me, and I'll give you my pricing, and we can go from there. And also, if you want to donate to my small, tiny channel here, you can donate via Venmo, which is Astroscoop. I'm on there at Astroscoop. Should be pretty easy to find me. And you have to have a Venmo account to send or receive money. So that's something, if you're so inclined to donate, I appreciate every potential thought. Thank you so much. But I was talking about last week a lot about the transits. But I was talking about last week a lot about the transits. This is a really, astrologers are always saying that it's a really interesting time with the transits and the cosmic chart, cosmic sky. But it seems like with this year, an election year, on the verge of a new year coming up, a lot of positive and negative things happening in the world. Seems like we're at an amazing juncture in history. So for anybody to be alive at this point that's aware of what's going on, other than babies, it's a pretty amazing amazing time to be born. So October 19th to today, to the 25th or 26th, comprises the Libra-Scorpio period. And a year ago, I think I did a Libra-Scorpio update video, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't recall, but I have 2 or 3 Libra-Scorpio videos that you can check out on my playlists. You can either look up Cusp Sign Series or Air or Water. And I have all of them, all the playlists on there. So you can find my videos fairly easily. But last week we talked about the late Libra energy, which is Libra 3, the 3rd decan of Libra, which is Venus ruled and co-ruled by Mercury. And late Libra people are theatrical, very strongly mental, and the most mature version, so to speak, of Libra based on the zodiac cycle. So when we talk about the Libra-Scorpio cusp, and every month now, if you're watching me regularly, you know that I'm a big cusp person. I'm not born on a cusp, but I know I have so many loved ones in my life and friends, and I mean dozens, that are born on cusps. So I know I have a lot of experience relating to cusp people and coaching cusp people, doing readings. Cusps are just amazing, and I'm going to do more detailed videos, I think, on the cusps, and talk about more in depth with like celebrities and how being a cusp person is different than being, if you're born today, you are a cusp. You are a Scorpio, but you're still on the Libra cusp. If you were born a week ago and we did my live stream on the 17th, I believe, you were a late Libra, almost on the cusp. So there's a big difference there when someone says, I'm a late Libra, I'm a Libra, and then if someone's born on October 22nd, a few days ago, they're still Libra, but almost Scorpio, just a hair away. So there's a difference between an October 17 person and an October 22nd person in terms of them both being Libra. The degrees matter. So it's not exactly the same on how they're going to utilize that Venus energy. And then you would look to Venus and look to the transits as well. But the Libra-Scorpio cusp, like all cusps, is a very strong blend of 2 very different energies. So obviously we've been talking about Libra for the last month, and I don't think I've talked too much about Scorpio on any live streams, because I don't think last year during Scorpio time, I don't think I had done. I know I had done a couple Scorpio videos, but not too in depth. So this will be kind of a good fresh update, I think, for Scorpio people or people that have planets in Scorpio. And that also includes, here's an interesting thing about astrology. So you hear astrologers talk about the major planets, which are the personal planets, and then the outer planets, which are more transpersonal, or they're more for a generation of people, because there's thousands and thousands of people that share that. Being born in a specific year, they're sharing those same outer transits. But if the outer planet, if you had an outer planet in Scorpio, it's a small influence most likely in your chart, unless it's connected to your sun sign or your moon or your rising. So then it's strong. So I'll give you an example. So let's say someone's born this week, the Libra-Scorpio person is born today, and they're ruled by, we're going to talk about, they're ruled by Venus and Pluto, the two rulers, and to a lesser extent, Mars. So you will look at their chart, any astrologer would look at Venus, Pluto, Mars placements. But if they had an outer planet in Scorpio, let's just say it was Jupiter or Saturn, most likely that planet would be a small influence in the personality or traits of the person, unless that person had, let's say they had Capricorn rising. So the Scorpio we were reading for today was a sun in Scorpio with Capricorn rising. So Saturn would be their ruler. So then we would deduce Saturn in Scorpio is their ruling planet. It rules their chart. So even though they're a sun sign in Scorpio, the chart ruler is Saturn, and it happens to be in Scorpio. So that Saturn Scorpio planet, even though it's outer, would be much more prominent and potent in terms of delineating the chart. So it's things like that that I think separate, average astrologers from good and great astrologers, because you notice those kinds of things in the mix. Now, when you look at a chart, and astrologers run the gamut of everything. Some astrologers are too simple. Some astrologers are way too complex. I like to try to be somewhere in the middle, not because I'm wishy-washy, but because I'm trying to create a format and a presentation that the majority of people can digest. That doesn't mean, if, regardless of what level I'm on, if I make it too intellectual, I will lose some people. If I dumb it down too much, I will lose some people. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of both. You make it a little simpler or make it a little more complex to make it interesting. But with astrology, it's really those little things in the chart, like taking the ruling planet and taking that into consideration as far as the weighting and score of a Scorpio person. So someone born today would be 3 degrees of Scorpio, at least in this year. So right now we're at the transit at 3 degrees of Scorpio. So that is a cusp person. In a couple days, when a baby's born and they're 5 degrees of Scorpio, they are going to be a Scorpio 1. They're true Scorpio, which we'll talk about next week, which is the raw Pluto Scorpio person, which is always so interesting. But these folks, these folks pack a punch, these Libra Scorpio people. So keep in mind, as we talk this hour, if you know anyone born between October 19th and the 25th or 26th, if you've been involved or are a parent or a grandparent or an aunt and uncle of someone, or you have a parent that's born this week, you'll know that these people pack quite the punch. So Libra Scorpio, it relates to someone probably in their late 40s, according to the zodiac cycle of 84 to 90 years of life, late 40s to about 50. So we talked about in Libra how the Libra energy was maybe like someone in their 40s getting into true midlife. So now as we go to Libra Scorpio and then into Scorpio next week, it's kind of you can kind of equate it to someone that is going from midlife to true middle age, which would be over 50. So at least I consider that. Someone 50 and over is still quite young, especially if they're going to live to 80 or 90. That's incredibly young to a 90-year-old, right? It's a kid, although some 50-year-olds may not feel that way. But so that's what we're dealing with. Maybe someone that's 48, 49, 50, sort of maturity or where you are in life. So when you think of people, when people get to their late 40s and early 50s, you're talking about people that have most likely are well into a marriage or have had marriages, divorces, have most of them would have kids that are preteen to teen or even older, and or are continuing to raise children, but are more at the later stage of their career, and then they would be having maybe 1 to 2 more phases of finishing raising family and then deciding what they're doing for the retirement and maybe another career, hobby, community help, that kind of thing. So a Libra Scorpio person, it's all about cutting through careless ways. Cut through careless ways. So what does that mean? Well, people born this week. So we've talked about how Libra is a very mental sign, and Librans are very sharp. And Librans can be quite sharp and critical in their observations. But it's not in the same way that like Virgo's critical. We've talked about Virgos can be picky or pedantic. Whereas with Libra, it's more of a social and airy orientation of why they want things balanced, and they're trying to correct that balance with others and themselves. So with a Libra Scorpio Cusp person, they cut through careless ways. These are people that they do not like carelessness. They do not like sloppy thinking. So the combination of Libra, sharpness, and then now we're coming into the Scorpio essence, whereas the late Libra person wasn't really having an essence of Scorpio yet, unless it's in their chart. Unless like I mentioned, some of them have Venus in Scorpio. They may have some Pluto ruled Pluto aspects. But generally speaking, the Libra Scorpio person, even the late Libra person, like I said, that's born on the 22nd. So they'd be like a 29 Libra. They're so close to Scorpio, they can feel it in themselves. And people born this week, they cut through careless ways. They don't like sloppy thinking. They don't like sloppy generalizations. They're very sharp and specific about what they like. And this obviously comes into play very much so when we talk about Scorpio, and Scorpios being a very definitive, resolute sign, which is completely obvious to people and if anybody that's done Scorpio research or have known Scorpio people. But the cusp here is when you consider someone that's like around 50 years of age and the kind of experience they've had, most likely, and have hopefully learned from some of their ways through having the Saturn return around 28 to 30, then another Saturn cycle in the late 30s, and then another one in the early 40s, and then one now in the late 40s to early 50s. There's another Saturn cycle, along with a Chiron or Chiron return as well. So the late 40s and 50 in general for anybody is not easy. It's not an easy time. It can be harder than 40. I think it could be maybe harder than 60 because of wounds and the arc of life. The arc of life. Generally speaking, if someone's 50, their parents, their grandparents are most likely gone, or at an incredible advanced age, and their parents are getting to an advanced age, and sorts of things. So things are changing. But the combination here of air and water creates charisma. So people born this week have an amazing charisma about them, and you'll see what I mean when we talk about the celebrities. And Now, what kind of charisma is this? There's a lot of signs that have charisma. In fact, all the signs have their own brand of charisma, you know, or being charismatic kind of thing. And sometimes our charisma is natural. It's just us. Some people find us attractive and likable, and others, there's always going to be people that don't care for us, you know, so we're not to everyone's taste. But some people will find me or you or any other astrologer naturally charismatic or not. So what is it? What makes a Libra-Scorpio person charismatic? Well, it's goes without saying. I mention every week. You would be hard pressed to find any Libra human being on the earth that's not attractive. And I don't mean even just looks. I don't mean even just classic symmetrical features or handsomeness for that man or woman that you know it's a Libra. Libra people are, you know, can be very charming and likable and sweet, and they have a lot going for them that makes them attractive. So if they have good genetics, that just adds to the package with Venus. But when we add the Scorpio on the cusp here, we start to add a little of that sexiness that obviously all astrologers and tarot people talk about Scorpio and Pluto and the water signs. And obviously what's sexy to one person compared to the next is different. It's all subjective. Sexy is a thousand different things to people. It's not just pure sex appeal. But people on this cusp are highly attractive and have charisma because of the combination of that Venus goddess energy, male or female, doesn't matter. The men on this cusp definitely have a Venus energy. They can really light up the room. As a man, they can light up the room because they can be masculine and charming at the same time. Whereas like an Aries cusp male would be more masculine, but not have as much as that pleasant or charming demeanor naturally. An Aries man wouldn't necessarily have that. But the tinge of Scorpio coming up on Scorpio adds that early Scorpio energy of sexiness. And it's true Scorpio because it's just Pluto. So Venus and Pluto is creating charisma here, and it creates influence. People born on this cusp are natural influencers. And I don't mean just like with social media. I mean in their sphere, in their circle of family and friends and work, they will absolutely, they can command sharp and committed to doing what they want to do well. And it's in a very specific way because it's that Libra need to balance things or correct things in the Libran way, not like a Virgo, but in a Libran airy way. And it's, oh, Smash says 100%. Thank you so much. Nice to see you. Appreciate you stopping by. So, you know, it's that the Scorpio has that laser focus. So it's the sharpness of Libra with the laser focus of Scorpio coming together on this cusp. So the charisma and influence that people have on here is completely natural. Now, it's not all positive because that could creates some drama in their lives. You know, if you're an attractive, charismatic person and a powerful person, some people are going to love that, and obviously some people you may rub the wrong way, depending on how you use it. So here we have air meeting water. So obviously, during the whole Libra period, each decan was major air, and then you had to look for, was there any Scorpio or any Virgo, those other signs in the chart. But here, even if the Libra-Scorpio person born on this cusp doesn't have a planet in Scorpio, let's say they don't have any other planet in Scorpio, and they're a 29 or 28 degree Libra, they're still going to have some Scorpio traits. It's not going to be as powerful as having a full planet in Scorpio, but it will be there. It'll be subtle, and people that know that person well and intimately will see it. But not necessarily the world or people at work will necessarily see or feel that energy from that person. But these people have it. So there's a big lesson here for people on this cusp. This goes for all cusp people too. So it actually kind of goes for every cusp here because of the contrasting traits of the two signs, trying to reconcile the traits of two signs. for your sun sign, which is your ego and your will. So heart versus head. And I know I've talked about this in my videos before when I mentioned Libra and Scorpio. So it's a big dilemma for Libra-Scorpio folks, because these two, their areas of influence in romantic and platonic relationships are that they can be very much in touch with their heart and committed to people, but they also have that airy sensitivity of Libra, which is the head. So they can be sensitive to you or to a situation, but it's not always necessarily sympathetic or empathetic naturally. I'm not saying that a Libra Scorpio person isn't that, but their baseline is not sympathy or empathy. The baseline is a sensitivity from thought, like, oh, well, what about this? How does that affect you? Whereas the Libra part is kind of laying back and not getting involved. So the heart versus head is a big lesson for Libra Scorpio people to try to figure out in this lifetime. Because on any given day, the Libra Scorpio person can be more heart feeling oriented, like the water side, or more head and airy, like the air side. And some of the people I've known on this cusp, I can think of them off the top of my head. Some of them I would definitely consider more feeling, and some I would consider more head oriented or more heady. But they have both. And depending on their level of maturity and the experiences they've had in relationships, this is a clash between their thoughts and feelings. And that's typical of any cusp, though, especially. Every single cusp has that issue of kind of heart versus head. But it's more specific when you have a water cusp on the cusp of another element. So like when we talk about next month, when we talk about Scorpio and Sag, we're going to talk about a water fire cusp. Here we're talking about an air water. So the common denominator is water, which is the Scorpio. And then when we get into the winter, we will talk about the Aquarius Pisces cusp, which will be air water as well. And those dilemmas with the head versus heart. So it's a big thing. And whereas the late Libra person is theatrical in a more air sign sort of way, and I mentioned how they can be kind of like the Leos of the air signs, the third decan of Libra is very dramatic and can be more like a Leo. This cusp is, because the Scorpio influence starts to take over, it's not Leo per se. It's dramatic and it's charismatic, but it's not in it's not in the same way as just purely Venus or like my charisma, like a fire sign might have. the personality and warmth or passion that of charisma that a fire sign would project, which they all have. But the head versus heart leads to these folks are overcritical. Now, whether that's a positive or negative, I guess depends. If you're overcritical, if you're a brain surgeon, right, or you're an ER doctor, and you have someone that's obsessively critical about treating you, maybe you want someone that's obsessive compulsive so that they can heal you and you can remain alive. So it depends on the context, right? You know, someone like this that was a first responder or a doctor or a surgeon or something, you know, that where anything would all be up Scorpio or Pluto line of work. You know, healers, there's a lot of potential there. But they can be overcritical with you, but they are also overcritical with themselves. Again, this is different. It's hard to explain, but it's different than like we see in Virgo. Someone would say, well, Virgo's critical. Why are they Virgo? They're critical too. But this is overcritical in a different sort of way. And it's the person on this cusp has a very strong aesthetic sense. Now, any Virgo or Libra influence, there's going to be aesthetics there. And then as we went from Virgo into Libra, now going into Libra-Scorpio, it creates a sense of the aesthetic and beauty, but it's more intense. So a Libra-Scorpio person is going to be more fixed about the beauty and how they want things in their environment, in their house, decorating, colors, textures, tastes, maybe their diet, how they dress. These people are going to be very critical in terms of how they want things. And it's not easy for people on this cusp to relinquish those ways to other people. Definitely not easy. And this can become disapproving. So because the Libra and Scorpio sees things so critically and sharply, they can often be disapproving of things that are less than what they want or less than ideal. Not necessarily perfectionist, but less than ideal. That's the way to put it. And it's in intensity. So if you're a Libra and you're not on the cusp, you might be overcritical and disapproving, but you may not have that flavor of intensity because you don't have Scorpio. But on a cusp, the Scorpio is adding that extra ingredient. It's adding that sauce to pot. And it's Libra-Scorpio has to be intense in some way. Even you'll say, well, I know people on this cusp, they're very easygoing and laid back. I see that Libra, and they're very, caring like Scorpio. Yes, depends on you got to look to Venus and Pluto and Mars there. That'll tell you a lot. But there's definitely a disapproving air there, also with themselves, and another lesson to just let go. Let some of those standards go at the right time. Having standards is wonderful. You have to have standards, but the overcritical and disapproving ways, sometimes the Libra-Scorpio person would be good to just let go of something that it doesn't need discussion. It's not a major thing. It's not something to sweat, and they could let it go. And remember, anywhere there's Libra, even the cusp, Virgo, Libra, Libra-Scorpio, any Libra planet, there's always going to be a penchant for argument or debate with Libra. Now, that doesn't mean negative, but I've never, ever met anyone with major Libra, ever, in any capacity, that didn't have a pretty easy, if they were prodded, a pretty easy reaction to argue or debate with you. And that's not everybody, but even the shyest, most passive Libra planets are going to have a sense of fairness and think things are just or not, and want to argue, debate, or correct that sort of thing. So here we have it, and just good to let go. Now, when you're looking at someone's chart with Libra and Scorpio, now we would be looking at Pluto. But the Pluto, like I mentioned, is an outer planet. It's generational. So you could say, well, the person I know born on this cusp has Pluto in, let's say they were born in the 70s. They have Pluto in Virgo. A Scorpio born in the 70s would have Pluto in Virgo. So he or she would be influenced by the Virgo-Pluto generation, not necessarily in a personal way. Unless Pluto was their ruling their chart or involved in a major aspects. It really depends on how much emphasis there is with Pluto. And if you looked at Mars for energy, obviously it's more so for Aries, but to a lesser extent, you could look to Mars for influence there, and you would look to Venus. And all that would give you indication of how much this Libra-Scorpio person can let go of those arguments or issues, and how much they can let go of those critical standards that they have. These folks have amazing potential, but they are not easy people. I know I mentioned in the summer, I mentioned how the sign of Leo wasn't. I wouldn't mention sign of Leo is easygoing. Now this Scorpio is more contrasting, the Scorpio Libra cusp, because in one sense they're not easygoing at all because of these standards, but in another sense there's a side to Libra-Scorpio people that love repose, relaxation, and quiet. So if the Scorpio part of them needs the quiet, and that Scorpio person part of them needs to recharge and transform their energies, the Libra part always needs to recharge and always needs to rebalance all of that social interaction they've had with other people. Just because Libra's social doesn't mean a Libra person is an extrovert. That's to me, that's different. You know, an extroverted person, regardless of the signs in your chart, is an extrovert. But a Libra planet is social to a point, and then it really depends on the rest of the chart and the Venus, and then is that person an extra introvert or a mix? You know, you could do, you know, you could get your INFJ, you could get your all your your model there and figure that out if you know that about yourself. Oh, thank you. She says your insight is spot on, so true. Thank you, I appreciate it. I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, so that's a really, really good lesson to let go. These folks are responsible because of all this powerful energy here. The ability to balance with Libra. Libra's plans are usually very well thought, good follow through, and well thought out. And Scorpio is very rarely ever careless or thoughtless about what he or she does. So combining that, very powerful and responsible. And these folks can take a lot on. They can take a lot on. But what's interesting about these folks, no matter how introverted or shy they are, all of the Libra Scorpio people have a wild and unpredictable side that will show somewhere in their lives. It may not show often. This is something also that is indicative of a Cusp person. Cusp people always have some kind of like, cards up their sleeve. It's like hidden traits or hidden personality traits that come out during certain events in their life or certain environments, whether they might be at a party or a wedding or something where they feel much more comfortable, or if someone's had a couple drinks, kind of thing. But undoubtedly, these people have a wild and unpredictable side. I mean, if you think about Venus, think about how much goddess and love energy Venus is for both men and women. And then Pluto, right? That sexiness and that mystery of Pluto. And you combine that, Pluto and Venus, whoa, that's quite a potion. So even the most straight-laced, conservative Libra Scorpio people will have that zany, wild side. And that also, it bleeds into their humor. And that can be both positive and negative too, with their kind of maybe a darker worldview. Their worldview can be a little dark and maybe a little cynical, and possibly negative or pessimistic, depending on the rising, depending on Mercury, Venus, all that has to be taken into consideration. Definitely the rising. You have to look at the rising to see what the mask is. But a lot of Libra Scorpio people I've known they have this kind of zany, wild sense of humor. It doesn't come out often, but it will come out often with people that they feel really comfortable with and that they trust. So as we go on to the Scorpio cusp here and close to the Scorpio essence, there's another element there of trust, which is big with water signs. So water signs need to feel more trust with their friend or loved one or partner to be able to express some of those deeper qualities. We have to remember that when we get into Scorpio, and I talk more about water signs, the water element is always ultra fascinating because the water element is the deepest element. And water signs are so much more than what you see at work or as an acquaintance or in your everyday life. If you don't know a water sign well, there's reasons. But water sign planets are really, really deep and have a lot of layers, like an onion. There's a lot going on, both positive and negative. But definitely that unpredictable side and a bit of dramatic, a little dramatic, but not like Leo, not like Aquarius, not like Gemini, not like Aries. It's nothing. The drama is nothing like that. It's not. It's not something I would consider showy. So does that make any sense? Someone that's charismatic and dramatic, but not showy. So this person could attract people with this kind of quiet drama about them, or this quiet charisma, just because of their presence. That's what these people have, absolutely. And that's all Cusp people as well. There's always that interesting mix of presence with the two signs. So the unpredictable side, wild, and obviously this is our artistic period in the zodiac with Libra and Scorpio. As you get into the water sign influence, you get creative. You know, water signs are wonderful for like art and music, in the sense that water signs embrace what's illogical. So, right? Because so much art, so much personal hobby and art and interests that people do, there's a systematic approach to everything, right? There's a systematic and logical approach to everything, to writing, to creating music. If you build furniture, or if you do crafts, or so everything has steps and everything has logic. But the Scorpio part of this cusp enters some lack of logic, if that makes any sense. Even though out of the three water signs, Scorpio is definitely the most logical and the most scientific. So Pluto is very mysterious and has layers to it. We'll talk about that more next week. Angelina says, hello, everyone. Hi, Angelina. Welcome. We're in the middle here. We're about 40 minutes in, 42 minutes in. All right. And so that is always artistic. And you'll always find that when Venus is well placed in any astrological chart. Obviously, with the Taurus folks as well. Venus and Taurus, Venus and Libra, well aspected Venuses. But obviously with Libra and Scorpio, there's that combination there. Oh, happy birthday, Angelina. This wonderful, wonderful. So Angelina, you are a Libra Scorpio cusp, but you are early Scorpio, almost very, very close to the first decan of Scorpio, true Scorpio. You're welcome, which is fascinating. So artistic, and the lesson is when Libra Scorpio people engage in creative things that make them happy, they are naturally less picky, if that makes sense, right? That's all of us. But Libra Scorpio people, you know, you got to give yourself a break. You know, Libra wants things balanced and correct so much, and we know when we talk about Scorpio, we know how Scorpio likes things. Woo! So give yourself a break. Do things have to be so? Does the window dressing have to be so correct, so right with the colors? You know, there's a point to where things look well and operate well, and sometimes it's okay to leave well enough alone. And but there's a lot to talk about that with the chart of the person. So less picky, and that's regarding harmony. So naturally speaking, a Libra Scorpio person that engages in those creative pursuits outside of whatever job they have to do, or whatever their personal or familial responsibilities are, they engage in that creative that uses that Libra part and uses that deep Scorpio part. No matter how logical and practical the Scorpio parts are, I know so many people with Scorpio planets, and they try to pretend like they're so together. They got everything in control. They're just like, no one's, everything is like cool. It's like, no way. Way underneath that, we're going to talk about more of this. Way underneath that, Scorpio is like, it's like a kid. Scorpio has so much pure creative energy way down underneath the dirt underneath there. And anyone with major Pluto planet there has to find something, whether it's astrology, whether it's healing, whether it's gardening, something that you're digging. You have to do something to engage that part, You will be naturally less picky, and you'll feel more harmony. Definitely. But a big lesson is Libra Scorpio people, it's not natural for them to learn. They don't relax naturally. They have a side of them that likes relaxation and likes repose, that Venus likes to recharge, but they don't naturally relax, and they don't naturally necessarily have fun unless that Venus would be in play. If a Libra Scorpio person had their Venus in Sagittarius or Leo, or Gemini or Aries, that would be a whole different ball game than having your Venus in Scorpio. Whole different ball game than having your Venus in Scorpio, like a lot of Libra people do, or Venus in Virgo, which is the sign before Libra. See a lot of that. See a lot of Virgo Venuses and Scorpio Venuses. But so it's a lesson for the Libra Scorpio person to relax and have fun. Now, fun doesn't have to be wild, but it should be fun. It should be something that's other than family or work responsibilities, kind of thing. And what I've noticed with folks that are Libra Scorpio people, because of that Pluto influence, if there's other heavy indicators, if there's like Capricorn planets, you hear astrologers talk about this all the time. Capricorn planets, major Saturn, the Saturn aspects, Capricorn rising, or Capricorn on the 10th, or even planets in those houses. You're adding these boulders of responsibilities, like these boulders of heaviness. So then it's even harder for that person to relax and allow themselves fun, or allow themselves to have fun. And it's interesting because when we talk about the next cusp in a month, when we talk about the cusp, the Scorpio Sag people, they're wildly different, because they can have too much fun. So it's interesting how there's that balance here of the cusps from 1 month in the astrological period to the next. And then, of course, the cusp a month ago, which was Virgo Libra. So relax, have fun on your level. Doesn't have to be crazy. And then that reduces isolation. So the Libra Scorpio person, the Libra part needing to recharge and be detached. The Scorpio part is so ultra cautious, but we all know that underneath, we all know if you've ever been in a relationship with anyone with major Scorpio, for the most part, you know that they're loving and deep. If they're a mature person, they're loving and deep, but it's way underneath. The question is, can you open enough doors to get to that part of them, and will they allow it? If not, you're seeing a more surface version of that Scorpio. You're seeing probably more of that controlled, cautious Scorpio, not necessarily detached. Scorpio can pretend like they don't care at all. Scorpio can fool you, and I don't care. They do. The Scorpio part cares. Let's be real. It doesn't matter how much you pretend that you don't care. The Libra part cannot care and also mean it. That doesn't mean Libra's uncaring, but Libra can do that. Libra can be like, I don't really care about this. It's like, oh yeah, okay, you're right, you really don't. Okay, that's fine. So that combination has to be reconciled so you can reduce feeling isolated. So get out. This is where I always mention the incorporation of the opposites in astrology. The opposite axis here. Astrologers like to use the word polarity or axis, same thing. The axis of Libra and Aries and Scorpio and Taurus, which are wonderful. And the Scorpio-Taurus axis, which we'll talk about more as we get into Scorpio, that's one of my favorites because it's one of the most powerful axis we have in astrology because of the signs, but also because of its yin and it's more inner. With Libra and Aries, it's more outer and it's cardinal energy. But the opposite here in 6 months, we're going to be talking about in late April, we'll be talking about the Aries-Taurus cusp, which is also a very powerful cusp. So these two cusps, late October, late April in the zodiac cycle, are both cusps of power, but in different ways. And they're oscillating. So they're similar but different, but they would oscillate. So if you had an Aries Taurus Cusp person and a Libra Scorpio person, they would have to respect that power in each other, and they'd have to be on the same page with whatever their values are or cause. If not, they're both going to dig their heels in. With those two, they would just dig their heels in. And then the question is, can you get past that? The Libra Scorpio standards, and then the Aries Taurus person that's just pure hard-headedness. That's just animal hard-headed because of the animal symbols, basically, which is just simple astrology, but that sort of thing. So the isolation can be an issue with people on this cusp. Again, if their Venus is in a more outgoing sign, if what's rising is more outgoing, you have an air or fire sign rising or on the 10th house with some good aspects, that'll bring the person out, absolutely. I've known Libra Scorpio people with Aquarius rising. That's an interesting mix of detachment and friendliness, obviously. So that's much different than like a Libra Scorpio with like a Cap rising or Taurus or even a Scorpio rising to add to the Pluto. So that's definitely a lesson. And all right, so we are here. So sarcasm here can undermine talents. So sarcasm is definitely part of this Libra Scorpio combination. Whether the Libra Scorpio person expresses it or not is different. They might just sit on it and be quiet, but they're thinking it. So that sarcasm can be fun, but it can undermine talents, and this can be related to your worldview, depending on your sense of being able to make decisions and that cautious Scorpio part. So that's hard. I can imagine that is hard. Now, I have a Scorpio planet in my chart that's 3 degrees of Scorpio, which is today's chart. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So, but mine is an outer planet. So it's not like it's my sun or my Venus. It's an outer planet that I have that's early Scorpio. It's still an influence. And then, of course, I look to the aspects that it makes in my chart. And that's what I've had other astrologers read me. That's what they have said or written down, as far as that little bit of Scorpio influence that I have from an outer planet. But again, it's all part of the puzzle of your chart. And if it's involved in certain alignments or aspects, it can be either stronger or weaker in terms of how your overall personality and what you express. So that sarcasm is twofold. It can be fun. It can cut through, like I said, it can cut through the carelessness and sloppy thinking sometimes of life. That's a good thing. So there's less superficiality for people on this cusp. We're getting into Scorpio, so it's a little more substantial, but it can undermine. Now, these people are stimulating. No doubt, the combination of the air, the Libra, and the Scorpios. We'll talk about Scorpios have a natural kind of quiet charm about them, or not so quiet. Scorpios are always, it's loaded. It's a loaded sign. Its energy is just always there. So you can feel it. So stimulating blend of beauty and emotional depth. So really, that's what the cusp period is, what makes it so interesting. So again, this is in astrology. It's like, and I don't always hear astrologers talking about the cusps or about the blend of signs. I don't hear a lot of astrologers talking about that. And that's so important because it's like a recipe, you're blending. So if you're last week, you're October 18th, you're a late Libra, but you're not a Scorpio cusp person. Now, you would only have Scorpio influence if there's a Scorpio planet or major Pluto there. But today, if you're October 25th, you are, and you're not a Libra, but you're still going to have little remnants of Libra in your personality, but you're going to be a little more potent because you're an early Scorpio, if that makes any sense. And if you know differing people born this week, if you know two people, one's the 19th, one's the 25th, you could see in their life You could see how they might be similar, but you could see that little subtle difference of them. Oh, this one, yeah, this person's more air. Oh yeah, that guy or gal, she's definitely more, they're definitely more in water, kind of thing. The elements come out, and when you meet people, you get a sense. You just get the elements speak to you, and some of it's not as easy to see, and usually that tends to be the people with the water signs and the water sign houses, the 4th house, the 8th house, the 12th house planets, and the water signs. So out of all the elements, there's mystery or people you can't figure out, you're always dealing with deeper water issues there in the chart, which is Angelina says, thank you, very true. Taurus, Moon, Venus, and Virgo. Wow, okay. Oh, that's a lot of Earth to balance that out. Yeah, I love Taurus Moon. That's nice. Taurus Moon that's really good for Libra. If the Libra side can be at all flaky, obviously we know Taurus Moon is not. So that's good. And that's the beauty of the chart too, is we can tap into those other pieces. When I think of my chart, there's pieces of my chart which obviously there's weaknesses or flaws in every chart, and you do your best to balance that out, right? But when you know what your weaknesses are intuitively, and you can know it astrologically, and you put that together, it can really help, because embracing your weaknesses is a strength. Most people don't like that, but I see these things on the threads on X and Instagram, these reels where these astrologers are brutal. They're brutal about the signs. I mean, really bad. They'll talk about the top 5, most evil signs, and they do these things, and they are funny and they are entertaining, and sometimes they are accurate. But the level of venom that some people have towards other signs, wow. It blows my mind. And I say venom because it's not hate. It's not strong dislike. It's venom. And I think if you have that kind of hate, or you have that kind of venom, hate towards other people because you've been hurt or burned, I think you really need to do some work. You need to do some inner work and try to raise your vibration a little bit. It doesn't mean we all don't have our primal moments where we sink down and we fight. We all have that, definitely, and people can trigger that in us. Certain signs, certain things will trigger. But the Libra-Scorpio person, that is a fight or flight person as well. Very strong fight or flight. They can fight. They can flee. And again, there's going to be it's intensely fairness. It's intensity and fairness. Are you treating this Libra-Scorpio person fairly? Are you fighting fairly? That's a really important thing with all these periods and the cusps too. Like if you fight with your spouse or your partner or your best friend, I think it's okay to fight, and even if you're a little out of line. But I've had people say to me, well, are you fighting fairly? Is that so that's important. And obviously that's very important to any Libra planet, or even a Libra-Scorpio planet, is fighting fairly and being aware of that. That's very important. So the blend of beauty and emotional depth, you have to look to Venus and Pluto in the chart, and to a lesser degree, Mars. Now, I know there's a lot of astrologers that talk about Scorpio when I'm coming up. And again, this is traditional versus modern astrology. Traditional versus modern, which is the same but different but the same. So I pick elements from both. I do Western astrology, and mine is some modern and some traditional, which you'll hear with some of the names that I dropped and the words. But here, do I consider Mars a strong influence with a Libra-Scorpio person? No. I would look to it. It's an influence. But I would absolutely look to where's Pluto, what's Pluto doing, what house, if you're an early Scorpio, like Angelina is, what house is your Scorpio? Where is it? What house is it placed in? Is it on a house cusp? Is it on a major point in the chart? those things would matter much more. Um, and then obviously Venus would be huge as well. Now, when we get to Scorpio next week, when I start talking about all our Pluto folks, Venus is not as important because Venus is not an influence on an early Scorpio. But again, Scorpio people might have Venus in Libra, right? I've known Scorpio folks that have Venus in Libra or Mars in Libra or Mercury in Libra. Very often, Scorpio people have a Libra planet. So then you're doing the dance of looking at the Libra and Scorpio traits kind of together. But that's very important, Venus and Pluto together. So let's get to our celebrities. It's 8 o'clock, we're about an hour in. So the celebrities I pick every week are always people born on this period. So they're not people born the whole month. They're specifically born between the 19th and 25th or 26th. And these people are either a late Libra or early Scorpio. So first we have Dizzy Gillespie, one of the major jazz talents in the world of jazz music. And if I'm thinking correctly, he's the one with the big cheeks when he's doing his horn. Very, very interesting. I feel like when I look at his face and I read about him and I hear him, I hear more of the Scorpio than Libra, but there's obviously both there. We have Antoine van Leeuwenhoek. He is one of the biggest like a microbiologist and microscopist, a scopist. And the reason I picked him is because he has this interesting look that I think is very Venusian, but it gives you insight into Libra Scorpio because of the need to look at balance, to lead under a microscope, looking at the balance of textures and shapes and things. But the Scorpio part of him made him obsessive, and he was prolific in what he looked at under a microscope and what he analyzed. So I'm not sure if he had any Virgo there, but that combination was pretty interesting. Scott Peterson, one of the more negative people on this list, person who was not sure if he was actually was he acquitted of killing his wife? I'm not really sure. I'm not up on that anymore. But he is a Libra Scorpio person, and that's another thing. When people on this cusp, there can be a dark side. There can be an addictive side to people on this cusp, and the addictive side, I think, would be mostly not necessarily physically addictive in terms of substances, but emotionally addictive in relationships. There can be a very, very obsessive or thrown off balance when treated unfairly or slights with that combination of Libra and Scorpio. And obviously he has that. Pele, who's the player of the century in sports, he accomplished so much in soccer, and he's one of the rare cusp people as far as sports. Weird Al Yankovic, he's one of the most prolific and consistent comedian, musical comedian people on the planet. And he's done so much research and so much work into when he covers his songs of famous songs, which is amazing. And he's very intense. So that's different than a late Libra. Liszt is one of the romantic composers. When I was doing research on music, so many of the composers that are born this week are part of the romantic period, which is not a mistake. There's a very strong romantic bent for Libra Scorpio people. Christopher Lloyd, he is one of my favorites on this list. He was in the Back to the Future series. He's a theater actor. He was also in the movie Clue from the 80s. He's zany. You can see that sharp mental intensity that he has. He kind of does this with his face, but he's also wild and zany. Now, his Venus is in Sagittarius. That's wildly different, right, than a Venus in Scorpio or a Venus in Virgo. So the Venus in Sagittarius person, that lightens things up, throws a little fire in there for that air and water mix. Then we have Jeff Goldblum, another very Venusian kind of guy on this cusp. He's also a prolific character actor, I think theater and stage, and he's also a jazz pianist, which I think is the Libra side. So again, when people on this cusp combine that Libra, the Venus of Libra and the creativity of Scorpio, when they find something, they can really be at ease. And I read an article where this woman talked about all these people that were on the Libra Scorpio cusp, and they talked about all these men. She talked about all these men with pictures of how they had Venus energy, um, as well as the Pluto energy. And I thought it was interesting. He was on there. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he was also a poet, again, a romantic poet. Carrie Fisher from many movies. Carrie Fisher's had a lot of trouble in her personal life and a lot of ups and downs. And that's another thing for people on this cusp. There can be an unstable influence with Venus and Pluto because it's almost like fluctuating mood swings with air and water. So you have to look at the rest of the chart. If there's Earth there, especially like Taurus or Capricorn, that can really help ground the person. I know a Libra Scorpio person well, and she has Capricorn rising, and her Capricorn rising is in, her Saturn is in Leo, and that gives her a lot of substance, and that calms down the Libra Scorpio a little bit. You know what I mean? And Carrie's Venus is in Virgo. Bela Lugosi is one of the biggest horror movie actors from the early part of the century. He helped to define the horror genre, along with Boris Karloff. He and Boris Karloff were probably the two main male actors with horror and that whole sort of goth thing. And Bela, obviously, Bela has that total Scorpio vibe about him, but he also had a very pleasing way of acting and a very strong screen presence. So no doubt he was Venusian, but he had the Pluto too. So he had both going on. And his Venus was, back in the day, was a Scorpio Sag Cusp Venus, and he was Austrian, and he comes from the Pluto Taurus generation, which is a long time ago. Pluto Taurus, almost Gemini generation. And, you know, to get to a Pluto Taurus, Pluto Taurus generation, you're talking about huge amounts of history, like we talk about between the generations. So that's very interesting. And then Tom Petty, the late folk rock singer and guitarist, songwriter, he was also incredibly prolific. He seemed like just this folksy guy with a few radio hits, but no, he has an amazing body of work. That's the thing. Anywhere there is Scorpio, you know, this is, every astrologer talks about this. The potential of any Pluto planet or any Scorpio or any 8th house planet is immense. The potential is absolutely immense to move mountains and create mountains. And Tom Petty did that. His body of work musically is equal to Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, any of those people, Elvis. His body of work is basically the same. So that Libra Scorpio, very committed. And his Venus was in Libra, which is added to his Venus vibe, and he came from the Pluto Leo generation, which that adds charisma as well. And then the last person on the list is Mark King. He's a lesser known singer, songwriter, bassist from the group Level 42. It's this English group from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Had a song called Lessons in Love and many other hits as well. And he's known for a very specific bass guitar technique. Amazing, though. Level 42's music is amazingly poignant and beautiful and moody. And if you listen to any of the Level 42 music, you can hear Mark's influence with the vocals. Very Venusian, but also has that allure of Scorpio. So those are the celebrities, and I think that gives you a good indication of the charisma and allure of someone on a Libra Scorpio cusp. So now as we end here, let's take a look at the transits here and what it means for Libra Scorpio people and others. So tonight, I'm looking at the transits tonight for 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time. We're at 3 degrees of Scorpio, like I mentioned, which is cusp. But in about a day and a half or 2 days, we're in a Scorpio 1. So if you know anyone that's pregnant, that's having a baby in the next week or two or next 3 weeks, they are going to be just a Scorpio. If they're born tomorrow or tonight, they will be a Libra-Scorpio baby, which you'll look to Venus and Pluto. But right now we have the Sun in Scorpio, we have Mercury in Scorpio, which adds to all that mystery. And I've noticed in myself, in my research for my videos and the live streams, I've noticed how much more of a deep dive I'm doing in my research than usual. I love to deep dive. But with the Mercury in Scorpio, holy cow, I feel it influencing me to deep dive. And it's definitely an influence. So Sun and Mercury in Scorpio right now, those are ruled by the loaded, everyone's talking about, the direct stationary Pluto at 29 of Cap now. So, you know, this 29-degree Cap, I keep talking about it every week. It's monumental in history. This is huge. We're talking about major structural changes in the world that hasn't been seen since the late 1770s, 1780s, you know, 1819. I mean, when we get to the 2070s, when some of us are not around, imagine what some of our kids and grandkids are going to experience when that comes around to 300 years from when Pluto was the Capricorn. You know, it's monumental. So that Pluto in Cap is going into Aquarius soon, and it's going to be there forever. It's going to be there for so long. So the early fixed signs, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 degree Scorpios, you're getting that square. Taurus, you're getting that square. Aquarius people, the early ones, you're getting that conjunction the next year or two. And then Leos, the early ones, you're getting that opposition. So any fixed placement that is early fixed, 0, 1, 2, 3, those 4 fixed signs, Pluto is going to do a number and will activate. There's no way that that planet's not going to transform in some way. Now, here's something really, here's kind of an easy hack to figure out if you're a casual or beginner astrologer, or someone that's just casual or an astrology student, so to speak. You want to find out how much a transit is affecting you, and you don't want people are psychics to find out. One thing you can do is, here's some free advice, is this is really big. So Pluto in Cap's at 29. So any astrologer, and almost every astrologer is going to say that's a critical degree. 29, 0 degrees. It's on the cusp of 2 signs. It's huge. And there's reasons for that. When you get into the Aquarius planets, when it gets into 3 or 4 or 5 degrees Aquarius, then we start moving. For a long time in history, it's just going to be that Aquarius influence. But what you can do is you have to consider your age is huge. So the Pluto at 0 of Aquarius soon is going to affect someone much differently if you're at an angle in your life. And what do I mean by that? I mean that basically at a 7-year point in your life. So if you know yourself or anyone that you're looking at for that 0 of Aquarius soon, you basically want to look at, are you between 28 and 30 and going through your Saturn return? You're just finishing it. Are you 35 to 40? Are you 42 to 45? Are you 49 to 52? And so on. So that's a quick hack, because then you're going to find out what other transits are happening at the same time. And that's where astrologers find the tricks, is they find, okay, this person the Pluto is hitting your Venus. Obviously, your love life is in shambles, or it's creating a whole new love life, which is great. But also you're going through a Uranus thing, or also you're going through a Saturn thing. So it's the combination of those heavies, right? It's a combination of those heavies that's influencing you. It's not just the one thing. It's like people will point out and say, oh my God, my marriage ended, or I started a new marriage. Look, Pluto's right on my Venus. But there's also usually something else there. And it's also very indicative of your age. So you have to look at those critical points, in your ages. If you're looking at your son or your grandkids or a niece or a nephew that's at 7, 14, or 21, that's different, obviously. A 7-year-old, not going through too many changes. A 14-year-old, yes, starting high school. A 21-year-old, oh yeah, almost out of college, starting their lives. And then obviously a 27 or 28-year-old adult, or at least becoming an adult, if they didn't feel like it before, is huge. So that's one good thing. We have the Venus in Sag, which I think is really good for all this tense energy. The Venus in Sag adds some freewheeling fire there. It's not necessarily positive or negative in terms of the other transits, but the Venus in Sag is fire, it's mutable. I think that's a good little flavor there. Saturn is still retrograde, Neptune retrograde, the node retrograde, Uranus retro, Jupiter retro. We have all those planets on pause right now. And then Mars is in Cancer, that'll be in Leo soon. That'll be a nice little touch of drama. And then of course tonight, right now we have the moon in Leo. We have a quarter moon phase with Scorpio squaring Leo tonight. So that's an interesting thing too. So Carolyn says, can you talk about the picture? Oh yes, sure, Carolyn. Yeah, this picture, this is my daughter draws my pictures every week, and I get a shout out to her. She deserves all the credit, and she drew a Scorpio. I was hoping she would do a planet, but she wanted to do a scorpion because we're almost in Scorpio. Full on Scorpio. We are in Scorpio, but we're almost in the full on early Scorpio. So she did scorpion here, which is really, really nice. So sometimes we do planets, glyphs, mythological symbols, or that kind of thing, animals, and she did the scorpion. So that's a really interesting thing. But with all that we talked about with the transits, I may have to do a transit live. We might have to do just a transit live stream because there's so much to talk about, and I feel like not enough people are seeing my live streams. So maybe I could chop it up a little bit. But yeah, that's a really, really good hack. But again, all the early fixed signs that Pluto in a couple months, so by Christmas and New Year's, January, we're going to start cruising with that Pluto in Aquarius. And of course, that will be direct for a period of time until it goes retrograde. But once that does, that'll be good, because then you'll start to feel all of these licks that Pluto and Capricorn's been taking, all this last ditch effort of cleaning and cleaning up the sewage and all the stuff that Pluto and Capricorn's been doing. This last ditch effort for Pluto will move forward and become more universal with Pluto and Aquarius. So I think it'll be a good thing. But again, this is a time for all of us to change. Change is hard. We resist it, especially the fixed signs. Fixed placements always resist change. But change is good in and of itself, but it's the amount of change. Like sometimes maybe you just need to dial your change a little bit. You need to appreciate someone in your life a little more. Be a little more easygoing and appreciate the person that's right in front of you or in your environment. Appreciative, gratitude, that sort of thing. Pluto and Saturn, they don't play around. They do not play around. And with Saturn being retrograde, all of these lessons, especially with the Pisces planets that people have, all of these lessons have been paused. It's like slowing down, pause, slowing down, pause. So that sort of thing. So that's all you can do is just hang in there. But I just want to remind everybody that my weekly live streams are here on YouTube. I may be experimenting with the times. It's usually at 7 p.m., sometimes 8, but I might do different days. So follow me on X, Astroscoop. Follow me on Instagram, Astroscoop7, and follow me here on YouTube. I have more videos coming up. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please, please share with your family and friends. And don't forget to subscribe. 80% of people that watch me are not subscribed to the channel. So that really helps the algorithm to suggest Astroscoop videos to other people. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you to anyone that pops in. I appreciate your bravery and honesty to tell me placements and give me information. That's what makes it interactive. It's so much fun. And I would like to see more people. I'd like to do less talking and see more people talking so we can get, a little community going. That's my goal for the new year. Thank you so much, everyone. Be safe and have a great week. And happy birthday to Scorpio people. Be well.